Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about identity, because in sport, when you play sports, your identity is so tied to the sport that you played. And a lot of the times, athletes who train their whole life for one sport to make it big, and that's all they ever known, this all they've ever done, you're the kid that plays football or runs or whatever it is, and then it just doesn't work out. You either, if it's the big leagues, you don't end up qualifying for that Olympics, or if it's even just like a few levels below that, you just don't, you're not good enough to make it pro, and there's not much more you can do about that. How do you deal with that, like when your identity is so tied to your sport and then it's kind of all gone? Because I see a lot of D1 athletes talking about this on the internet, of just girls being like, oh, how do you train now that I've graduated from college and I'm not doing like training twice a day with my team, or what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know what to do with myself, or what do you mean I'm never gonna be in D1, that kind of athlete means so much, and they're just like, what do you mean I'm never going to do that again? Like, I'm just a normal person now. So how do you deal with that? Where do you go from there?
That's tough. And honestly, like, it's such a unique experience. It's just not comparable to anything, and athlete to athlete, like, you would know how like nobody relates to that better than you. So to start with, it is tough, and it's really hard, that transition. I've had to counsel athletes through that transition, and it's just hard. There's no other way to put it. Obviously support helps, and leaning on your support network in that transition is super, super helpful. I saw somewhere online, and I think it's so, so true, that athletes make the best employees because no one knows discipline and hard work like an athlete. And so a lot of that is reminding athletes of their potential and how transferable those skills are anywhere they take them. It is an adjustment period. Like, I can't imagine going from being on field all the time to being in an office. And nothing I say will change that. But like I said before, right, the skills that sport teaches you are so, so, so like transferable to life. So I think it's a very personal thing that I wouldn't even begin to, know how to transition. But like, I think that reminder to any athlete out there that the skills that they have don't just go away because they're not playing their sport. They are transferable, and you can take them wherever you go. But going back to your original question, identity does play a huge role even when you are performing, where I won't ever shut up about hobbies. I say it all the time on my Instagram as well. And I think my athletes are like sick of me talking to them about pursuing hobbies. But there is so much value in building your identity outside of sport, even when you're a professional athlete, even when you're an Olympian. Go be bad at something. I say that all the time. Athletes, especially elite athletes, are not used to being bad at things.
I can imagine.
All, right? They're so used to being good at what they do, that the more you learn and try and mess around and be bad at stuff, it even honestly helps your performance so, so, so much. I talk to coaches all the time, and so many of them agree with me about athletes taking time off to go play other sports, or just have fun, try new stuff. Something I say to my athletes all the time is, while most of the time what we talk about in session is sport specific, And yes, you are an athlete, you are a human being first. And my approach is human first always.
Yeah.
And that, in my experience, helps performance so much more. You've heard everyone say, like, if something's not working, just switch it off and switch it back on, and it works a lot better. And we work like that as well. Like, humans work like that as well. So to have things to switch off to outside your sport, it helps you come back to, like, a lot of athletes that I work with, if they hate painting or the artistic side of themselves, I say, go do it, so that when you come back to your sport, you're like, thank God, I can just play my sport. And it gives you such a fresh perspective on it. So identity building is a huge part of what I do, even with elite athletes. But that transition is super hard whenever it comes.
No, I think it's such great advice. Go be bad at something, because, like, especially with, like, now, for me now with sport, if I have to, like, say, like, go play football even recreationally, I'm like, oh, but I haven't played in so long, I don't know what the level of the other girls are, like, I don't think I can do it, like, what if I'm so bad, and like my friends are like, okay, but what are you afraid, like, who are you afraid of disappointing or letting down or whatever it is? And I guess, like, at the end of the day, it's myself, because the 11 other girls on the pitch are not gonna care. We're all just like, you're coming to play for fun. But I think we need to be told more to just, like, go do things without thinking, just, like, for fun, even if we're bad at it. And it can be a good thing.
And you will disappoint yourself, and that's a good thing, so that then you can work harder and be better, so it's fine. It's like part of the process is making mistakes, and then when you reframe making mistakes, a lot of athletes, which comes with the being good, is like, I don't want to mess up, I don't want to make a mistake, but you will. Like, that's not something you can always control. What's more important, and what I see with elite athletes, is not their ability to not make mistakes, but more so how well they are coming back from them. So
it's definitely a skill to develop. But I asked also the identity question, because I remember how hard it was for me, and not that I was, like, an elite level athlete or anything like that, but my identity was so tied to my sport, which, like, I feel like is only natural when you're training so much for it and stuff like that. And so much of the hesitation of my decision when I was quitting was, I was like, okay, but what are people gonna know me for? Like, it's, like, tied to your worth almost. Like, what am I, like, in school I'm gonna be no one now, like, I'm always Nandita, the girl that runs, and now, like, what are the teachers gonna think, what are my peers gonna think, this and that. And at that time, school houses were the biggest thing. I was like, I'm gonna let my whole house down. It was such a huge, like, such an internal turmoil for me. And then I think after it happened, it was kind of just like everyone just went on with their day, and it was comforting that I think people didn't care as much as I thought. Like, I was very glad to have just been able to, the transition, I guess, was smoother than I thought. And I think if I hadn't quit, then I wouldn't have been able to, like, fall in love with sport again and find my way back to it. So while in a lot of ways I'll always wonder, I think I am, like, glad that I did it when I did.
It works out, things work out the way they have to, I guess. So the transition for anything, like, change is always hard. Change is never not going to be hard. And you mentioned, like, you weren't elite. It doesn't matter. Whatever level you are, any kind of change is terrifying. But that's what mental resilience and mental strength is not being scared. It's doing it despite being scared. And then you grow and you learn through that fear. So
and you talk about mental strength and resilience, and how some of what sets your elite athletes apart is how they come back from mistakes. So how would you link mental health and performance, especially to people who are, like, skeptical about the mental health in sports and just having that presence?
Yeah. I'll answer this in two ways. The first one is that I think over the years, especially recently, it's made itself apparent.
Yeah.
Like we said, at the top level, the skill is pretty much the same. It is time and time again your mentality that is setting you apart. When it comes down to it at 19 all, the person that's going to take the point at equal skill is the person who's able to hold their nerves better.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of skepticism comes from lack of awareness. And so a big part of my job is to create awareness. But the second part of my answer is sports psych and performance psych isn't for everyone. The same way, when you show up for practice, you have to give your full effort. You have to work hard. You have to push yourself.
Yeah.
Mental resilience is that, right? Like you have to put in the mental reps. You have to put in the work, and not everyone's willing to do that. Right. So in some ways, it's not for everyone. If you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to go the extra mile, and you value your performance, and it doesn't have to be with a professional, it doesn't have to be with a sports psychologist, because I recognize that not everyone has access or can afford one.
Yeah.
But it takes that decision to be like, I'm going to work on my mental strength. And then for you to time and time again build those habits that allow you to do that. And I think we all do that to some extent, whether it's, showing up to the gym every day after falling out of that routine, or making to-do lists, it takes effort.
Yeah.
And so to the skeptics, I feel that if I make it sound too accessible, they're like, oh, I'll just show up and it'll be fine. But it takes, and that's something whenever I start working with an athlete, I say, like, there will be homework, it will take work, and it's beyond this hour that we spend together every week or so. You have to go off and do your own things. I'm there, my athletes are putting in immense amount of work.
Of course.
So yeah, I think I'm never convincing anyone to come to me, because it has to be a personal decision, and you have to decide that, like, I want to work on my mental game, on my performance, and then it works a lot easier, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess, it does make sense, because even in your 1 hour, in your sessions, the athlete has to be open to talk and share and all these things. You can't be the one prying information out of them.
Exactly.
You said part of your job is like making people aware of this. So what are ways that you're doing that? And you also mentioned your Instagram, if you want to.
So a big part of my job, like I said, was to inform people, raise awareness about mental health, the importance of it, sports psych, performance psych. I've had some incredible opportunities through my job I've spoken at Bombay Gymkhana as well to a bunch of young athletes about what I do. So I'm talking at CCI tomorrow as well. So as much as I can, I do these talks. Coaches that do work with me are super encouraging, saying, come talk to our kids about it. So a lot of that, just in general conversation with my friends in my networks, with the athletes I work with, they always spread the word, and clients refer other clients.
Yeah.
And then of course my Instagram, which is, I've recently started posting a bit more on there as well. AS Performance Psych.
Don't worry, we'll have it on the screen.
So I've been posting on there as well, where, obviously as a psychologist, I have to be really mindful about confidentiality, about certain boundaries that come with the profession. But I think a big thing with psychology and the brain is it's so mysterious that the dissemination of information hasn't been the greatest in the past.
Yeah.
And so I just think the more of us that are out there talking about it, even if one person is more aware, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So as much as I can, I'm just always talking about it.
I love it.
So yeah.
I'm just gonna pivot before we wrap. I want to talk about women's sports specifically and female athletes, because it wouldn't be a Ready Set Girl talk if we don't. So firstly, do you think that like with the rise of women's sports, and it's like a booming industry now, do you think that has affected like sport, the relationship between sports and mental health at all?
Absolutely. I think a superpower that women have is that openness towards being emotional and showing that vulnerability, which I think empowers a lot more people to do that. And the more in tune you are with your emotions, the better you're able to regulate them and use them to your advantage. So women are incredible. And it's amazing that they're getting, obviously we're so far off still and there's so much work to do. But with the growth in attention towards women's sports, I think there's a lot of general empowerment towards just speaking up, being more open and honest and vulnerable, which sport is. It's a very emotional thing for everyone involved, the audience, the players, the support staff. So definitely, I think women are playing a super big role in that.
Yeah, which I think it's interesting, because I think in a way sports is like traditionally the only sphere that men have allowed themselves to be emotional in. But at the same time, because sport has been such a like masculine energy charged sphere of society, that all these things like vulnerability and showing emotion and showing things that are considered weak have been so sidelined, that now with the entrance of female athletes that are challenging all of that, and what like being masculine and what like sport has been, I think is only doing so much for mental health in sports. And I think it's so cool to see, I mean, Simone Biles, like watching her doc was like, just, I felt like I was like I felt like I was having a personal conversation with her, but I just related so much. So many of the things she was saying, I felt like I had said aloud in my life earlier. And it was just so cool to see such an elite athlete being like, like this shit is hard to do, and I am allowed to step away and take a second if I need it. And there have been so many more, you see so many athletes being like, I won this race because like I've written every night in my diary or whatever it is, and like I keep this journal and this and that. And it's so cool to see things that, like, I guess like coming back to like what I was saying about what people think about visualization and manifestation, all these things that have this like girly tag, writing in your journal, this girly tag on them, that because they have this tag are sidelined and are thought of as frivolous and unserious and this and that, are like, people are now seeing it as real things and real mechanisms, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
I guess, do you see a difference in mental health specifically for female athletes, or how do you deal with that? Or I guess to whatever ability you're able to answer that, but just, do you see a difference in the way that female athletes come to you with problems, or whatever your experience has been and what you've seen compared to male athletes?
So without going into any personal details, genetically, historically, research-based, and from my own experience, obviously males and females work super differently. Our bodies are different, our hormones are different. So like there are certain differences between genders, for the better and the worse, whether it's cultural expectations of who's allowed to show
Yeah.
expression versus who's not. One thing with women specifically is also there's an added layer of awareness that I focus on. So I won't talk too much about my athletes, but something
Yeah.
that I am really cognizant of is a lot of the research out there is based on white male populations.
Yeah.
And whether it's your BMI or your body composition, workout structures, the whole like
Yeah.
75 hard
Yeah.
challenge, if you're aware of that, it's primarily designed for men.
Yeah.
And so even things like taking into account menstrual cycles or how that might change over time, looking at the landscape where a lot of the support staff is primarily male or people in leadership are primarily male. There's a lot of educating and awareness around that where an athlete might be really thrown off about their BMI or their body composition, but they don't know that it's not made for an Eastern female body, you know? And so, like, that's what I mean by we're making progress, but we're so far that it's just so deep-rooted, the inequalities.
There's so much work and unlearning that we all have to do.
That there is, that I feel like I learn from my athletes all the time. About whether it's, you know, just, and not only in India, but around the world, female athletes will have more sleep issues or body image issues or things like that that are just ingrained in the way people talk about female bodies, you know? So all of those things, while physical, obviously impact mental.
Of course.
Every athlete's journey is super, super different. So, you know, sometimes you won't see that in female athletes, but I think there's a lot to it that I think sometimes it's very blatant and sometimes it's like aha moments where you're like, whoa, I didn't even know it was that deep rooted, you know?
And like there's so many conversations now about training like a female athlete in sync with her menstrual cycle. And of course, that's so relevant for physical training because your body is constantly going through changes. But I'm wondering, how does that work for like the mental training that you were talking about? Because there are phases in my cycle where I feel like a completely different crazy person, and then the next week I'm like, oh, actually it's all fine. I was just getting my period. And I can only imagine that, you know, as an elite level athlete, if 1 week you're like, I'm terrible at everything and I can't do this, and you have an important event, you know, that's not really going to work. So how does that impact your mental training?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's super athlete specific, but some general tools that we use are keeping your training diary, keeping a journal. I think the Whoop is great for the journal. The Whoop has a journal feature where I encourage all athletes to track their menstrual cycle. Over time, we find patterns like the 24th of every month, I'm super cranky. And I'm like, what do you think about that? You know, so I think a big piece of this whole thing is self-awareness, where your sports psychologist helps you become more self-aware, and then you can do a lot more with that self-awareness, where you can say to yourself, I'm just on my period, you know? So I think that's my approach to it, is let's figure out, because honestly, that too, right? I think it's such a misconception that, if you're on your period, you must not be able to play. I've hit some of my personal bests on my period in the gym. So all those things really are so person specific
100%.
that my goal is always self-awareness. Let's get that to the max, and then you can do a lot more with that as you will.
Okay, and my last question to you is just about what your experience has been as a female in the sports industry, because while that number might be changing now, we still have a very long way to go, and we're more often than not the only woman in the room and I just want to know what it's been like for you.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I think I have been surrounded by some incredible women throughout my academic and professional career. Where I work, I'm surrounded by women, which is awesome. But I also know that that's not the norm.
Yeah.
Out in the field, I see a lot more male professional support staff, males in leadership. So, yeah, I think as a woman, I know the perspective and strengths that I carry. I also know the limitations that are put on us as females, as young females in the field. Small things, it'll be like where our male counterparts are having to think more of our safety or logistically. I've been told by experience that in hiring, historically in any field, if you're a female, your age is more of a factor, or logistically, if a company has to accommodate your lodging or where you stay, a female needs a room of her own, whereas a male you can just put two together, and so the male will get the preference. Things like that. It's really like small things, you know. Yeah, I guess the way I approach it is I'm constantly aware of both the privilege and the place that I hold as a female support staff in the industry. There's a big part of it that I think, as I say to any athlete, that is out of my control, and people have their misconceptions about my job, my role, me, as a female in that space. And my approach has always been to be the best at what I do, to focus on how I'm helping my athlete, how I'm working with my athlete. The only thing I can control is, what I do and what I believe in and how I work, and then how people perceive you is,
that's not your problem.
Not my problem, and not on me. But yeah, there's a lot that I'm figuring out every single day on the job. I'm traveling a lot more for work now, and small things like female, like bathroom facilities, we've experienced it in DSO, ISSO level as young athletes, but also at this elite level, it's there.
It doesn't never improve?
I wouldn't say never, but
even at the elite level, because I have experienced some of the worst bathroom conditions ever at these sports meets, which is such a deterrent for female athletes, and becomes a big reason that they drop out of sport entirely.
100%. And yes, maybe the male bathrooms are equally bad, but you don't have to change a pad, and you don't have to it's squat.
It's easier.
It's just it matters, and that's why UTIs are such a big thing. So there are still a lot more smaller pieces to the puzzle that need work.
You just got to keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure your work shows for it. But yeah, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Unfortunately, we've reached our time limit. But you should follow Aashna. I will have her handle on screen. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And honestly, I've been following you for so long that I think it's so incredible what you're doing. And
thank you.
I'm glad we could finally sit down and chat.
It's exciting. I'm sure we'll do this again.